Hey everyone, this is Lawrence Watkins. I'm here with Al Duncan. We're the founders of Great Pro Speakers, back with you once again for another great pro speaking tip. Al, what are we talking about today?
So this week we're going to focus on what to do after you actually book the gig. What do you do immediately from the time the event planner says yes up until you finish the speaking engagement and you got great reviews? Now, this is one of those things where people tend to focus on other things like what am I going to actually say on stage, how can I sell more products and things of that nature, how can I get more gigs. All of that's important, but this is one of those ones that you don't realize how important it is until you mess it up.
Mhm.
Until something goes wrong or until there's a problem and you wondering where your money is and how come it didn't arrive when you thought it was going to arrive, or you weren't quite at the exact location where you should be. That's usually when this all of a sudden becomes important. So don't gloss over this topic. This is extremely important. It makes sure that you get paid on time, and it also helps facilitate you getting repeat business and referrals.
Yeah, and it's something that we've struggled with in the past because when we were first starting, you get so excited when the person says yes,
Right.
not really realizing that there's so much work left to be done to make sure that you have a successful event and then that you still get paid for the event as well. So, when the person says yes, you're probably only, 50 to 60% of the way done.
Yeah.
But still a lot, that you need to deliver before you actually get paid.
Yep, I agree with that. It's not over until you actually get paid, and not just get paid until you actually deliver what the event planner is expecting you to deliver.
Right. So, what should a speaker do after someone says, "Okay, Al, we want to bring you in for a speaking engagement"? What's
Okay.
going to happen?
Yeah, so I think we broke it down into basically four categories. We have you should know the details. That's the first thing, right?
Mhm.
And then what's the other one we have, Lawrence?
Make it official. So,
Make it official. So we need
uh-huh,
documentation, right?
right.
Then we want to talk about it.
Hmm.
Okay. And that is you're going to have a conference call with the event planner. And the last thing is then you should take care of the details. So we're back
Right.
to the details because there's always more details. All right. So
There are always more
there's
details.
always more
Sure.
details. You'll be surprised. So first things first, let's jump into the know the details. And we keep this real simple. What's the first detail we want to focus on?
Yeah. So the first one is just who is booking you for the event, and of course, you probably already know, what organization it is,
Hmm.
but you need these details for the contracting later on in the process. So
Right.
you need to know the exact name of the organization that's booking you,
Yep.
uh, and once you know that, you also have a better understanding of the audience. But you'll dig deeper into that as well.
I agree, and you should. I think you should also know who's signing the contract,
Oh yeah.
because oftentimes, especially if you're dealing with a speaking engagement that's from a university or a school or a large organization, a large company, the person that you're talking to may not be the person who's actually going to sign the contract. So
Right.
you want to know who's in charge of making sure you get paid.
Yeah, no, that is
Yeah.
yeah, that is definitely true. And then, you also need to know what you're talking about and what type of event it is as well.
Yes, that's important. Do not assume or take for granted that you and the event planner or the organizer really understand what you're going to talk about. I usually ask a very specific question, and that is, did you see something on my website that you specifically wanted me to talk about? So
Mhm.
I want to know that if something they were expecting to come out of my mouth. Also, I ask, obviously, what's the theme of the event? What are you all trying to get across? What's the theme of this year's event? What was last year's theme? I'm just curious. I ask questions so I can understand what they're going to want me to deliver, and to make sure that I'm on point with that. I'm also interested in, believe it or not, and I always ask this: who are the other speakers at the event?
Mhm.
I want to know what they're talking about. Is there a keynote before me? Am I the opening keynote, closing keynote? Are there some other breakout sessions around any of that? So I like to know these things so that I can make sure with pinpoint accuracy I'm delivering and that I am talking about exactly what he or she expects me to bring to the table.
Yeah, and that's something that we actually put right into the contract, the title of the
Hmm.
speech. We'll talk about how long they want you to speak for, And really, like the type of speech that you deliver for a keynote is different than a training session.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's really important to know the what, but it's also important to know the when. Um,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. So.
Um, oh, wait a minute, Lawrence. One more thing on the what.
Uh huh.
One other question, and you, if you're watching this video, you want to write this down. Ask the event organizer, is there anything that has happened in your industry that I should be aware of, or in the company, or at the school, or the organization? Is there something that I should not talk about?
Right.
For instance, one time I went to speak at a school, and I was doing some research on the school, and I saw in the news that about 3 months prior to me coming there, there was actually a student who had committed suicide.
Oh wow.
And I wasn't sure if I should touch on that or not. I usually steer clear of that, but I specifically asked the event planner about it, and she said, you know, if you could just acknowledge that they have been through some hard times at the school, and you know that, but not really dig into what happened. I said, okay, there's no problem.
Right. Right.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So
Yeah. And that's
on to
good
the
too.
win.
Yeah, doing the research beforehand in regards to knowing your audience.
Yeah, you know, I don't take for granted that the event planner, sometimes, believe it or not, the event planner has an idea, but it's not a concrete idea of what he or she wants. And that's why they're contacting you, because you're the
Right.
subject matter expert. You're the one who's supposed to be an expert at delivering content in an engaging manner to his or her audience. And so therefore, they're also relying on you to bring certain knowledge to the table and to guide them in the process as well.
Right. Right. So let's move on to the win.
Okay.
That's something else that
Very
definitely
important.
you want to understand is win, because I can't. I mean, there's been a few times where a speaker just missed their flight, or
Oh,
yeah, they didn't. They thought the engagement started at 3 p.m., but their clocks are still in Central Time instead of Eastern Time,
oh,
or
yes.
whatever it may be.
I've heard those horror stories. Yep.
Yeah, and it's very important. I know it seems so small, but it's very important to know when the event is actually happening and what time you're supposed to be there, what time they're expecting you. Because event planners, sometimes they call me in a frantic panic because
Mm-hmm.
the speaker that they booked hasn't arrived yet, and
Right.
the bureau look bad, but then it also makes the speaker look bad as well.
Yeah, I agree. That when is very big. It's not just when are you going to speak, it's when does the event planner get to set eyes on you and know that you're actually there so that she can breathe a sigh of relief and say, that's one less thing I got to worry about. There's my speaker. I see my speaker and I'm cool with that, And so I try to establish with the event planner when I'm going to arrive. Now, for me, normally I'm down there for the mic check or, just to let the event planner put his or her eyes on me no later than about an hour, maybe 45 minutes before we get started. Even if I just poke my head in and say, hey, I'm here just so you know, and I take off and go do something else. That's really a speaker's personal preference. But what I don't do is walk in 5 minutes
Right.
before it's time to speak. That's a
Right.
no-no. Can't
Yeah,
happen.
definitely. That's a huge no-no.
It cannot happen. And don't confuse event start time with your speaking time.
Right.
That's another thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think it's good to have both of those things in the contract in terms of when you're actually supposed to be there and, when the event actually starts. So,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And then I guess to go along with that, you need to know the where as well. So I guess those.
Yes, that's important because one time I had a school book me, and without thinking, giving it a second thought, I'm thinking that we're going to be at the auditorium in the school, but that's not where the event was. The school
Right.
booked me, but the event was not at the school auditorium. It was at an amphitheater a few blocks from the school.
Right.
So fortunately for me, which is a good thing that I arrived about an hour early,
Yeah.
when I got there, and this was very early on in my speaking career, when I got there, they were like, oh no, it's a few blocks down the road. And I'm glad it was only a few blocks down the road and
Right.
not something catastrophic like the school booked me, but it was actually a conference that was being held in another city.
Right.
40
Yeah.
miles away, because I have seen that happen also, where the school is booking you, but the school is booking you to actually do a regional FBLA event or some regional student leadership event, and they're the host school, but they decided to have the event at a different location. So where is extremely important.
Right, right. And that leads to the how.
Hmm.
How is the event going to, happen? Is it, is it a keynote, breakout, training
Hmm.
session? How long is it going to be?
Right.
Are you going to get there? Who's paying? So let's talk about that type of stuff.
Yeah. Are you the only speaker on the event? How is the event going to go? Like, I usually ask the event planner, give me a rundown of the event, the entire event from beginning to end. And if it's a 3 or 4 day event, then sometimes I'll say, well, you can just give me a quick overview of the entire event, but I would like to specifically know what's going on the day of when
Right.
you expect me to speak. Is there breakfast before I speak? Am I speaking during lunch? Is it
Mhm.
right after lunch? Is the breakout session immediately after my keynote? Like, do I have no time to talk to people? I have to get right to the breakout room. These things are important, and if you gloss over them, you find yourself frantic and at odds with the event planner if you're not careful. So that's definitely one thing. How is the event going to unfold? How's it going down? Another part of how is, so how am I going to actually get to the venue?
Mhm.
Are you coming to pick me up at the airport? Are you expecting me to drive?
Mhm.
If you're expecting me to drive, can you please tell me about the traffic patterns?
Mhm.
Is it crazy traffic at that time in the morning or that time of the afternoon? These are questions that I've learned to ask. Eventually, you learn to ask over the years because they help, once again, like I said, make the process smooth, but it also makes the meeting planner like you. There's a lot more to an event planner liking you and wanting to recommend you and do business with you as a speaker than just your ability to speak. You'll be
Right.
surprised about that.
Yeah, yeah. And then who's paying and the money, right? Yeah. How are
Yes.
you getting paid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree.
Right.
So there's a lot on how you're getting paid. And what I mean by that is, are you getting a deposit? Well, you want a deposit. If you can get a deposit, you want a deposit. Deposits are great for speakers. It's cash flow. It's
Mhm.
also make sure that they don't flake out with the event at the last second just
Right.
because, hey, well, we decided to cancel after you've been holding this date for 6 months.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Mhm.
Which is terrible. So if you have a deposit, what happens is they'll be more likely to honor the date or to at least reschedule it at the earliest time possible. So you got a deposit. Are you getting one or not?
Mhm.
The other thing, and here's, if you can't get a deposit, then you have to weigh how you want to deal with that. I'm always careful when I'm talking to like a celebrity speaker or
Mhm.
someone who's getting a huge amount of money because I'm kind of reluctant to tell this person they should do the event anyway. If I'm talking to somebody in the education market and it's a
Yeah.
university paying you, I'm telling them, look, really, that's industry standard.
Right.
A
Mhm.
lot of times they're not going to give a deposit. The school wants to make one payment and they'll have it the day of, typically, of the event. And if they're not going to give you a deposit, they should definitely have your check ready the day of the event. Uh,
Right.
that one you should put your foot down about. And it just depends, once again, on how reasonable you want to be. Now, I've had relationships with universities where they'll say, Al, you're a regular vendor and you're in our system. Therefore, our payment terms for vendors are net 30 days.
Mhm.
Now, I don't like that because I want to get paid that day. And typically, when I work with that organization, I have gotten paid that day. But there's been a few times where it's taken a week or 2 weeks later before I gotten
Mhm.
paid. And I decided at that point in time, for me, it was okay. But if you're a big name speaker, I can't tell how many times I've seen a big name speaker just get messed over. Really get jacked out of a whole lot of planning and promotion they did because if you're a big name speaker and you get $25,000 for an event, that's a lot of money. So
Right.
I have no problem with somebody saying, if I can't get a deposit, I don't know if I want to do the gig. Really
Right.
just depends. And hopefully, Lawrence, as the bureau, you can help out with that a lot.
Yeah, so yeah, a lot of times we can help out, and that's one of our main purposes is to make sure we have the deposits in hand and make sure final payments paid on the day
Hmm.
of engagement and that type of stuff. However, we have the same problems with universities, for example. A lot of them aren't able to pay for the services rendered until after they're completed.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And usually the bigger the organization, the less fear that I have with
Yes, I agree.
getting paid.
Hmm.
So if it's like a small independent organization, we tend to ask for a deposit more, but then they also have more flexibility to pay it because they don't have as much bureaucracy to go through.
Right. Yep. I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And the other thing is with your deposits and things of that nature. Uh, I was telling Lawrence yesterday when we were figuring out what we wanted to talk about, and that is I've started asking for electronic payments, not credit cards.
Yeah.
That's different. I don't want a credit card because I don't want to pay 2.9% or whatever it is, or anything, any type of percentage of my fee going back to the credit card company. So that's not what I mean.
Right.
I'm talking about electronic, getting set up as a vendor and getting paid electronically straight to your bank account, direct deposit. If it's a large organization or organization that you work with for quite some time, you'll be surprised. They will be more than happy to do that, because a lot of times they prefer that because it cuts down on their paper costs. And a lot of organizations, going green and things of that nature, would much rather do the electronic thing nowadays anyway. So you should ask if they have a vendor system where you can be paid electronically. And a lot of times you get paid much faster that way. Sometimes when they say you get paid the day of, you wake up that morning before you've even had a chance to get on the mic and find out, hey, look at that. That's nice looking in my bank account, right? So I think that's a good thing to ask for. The other thing about getting paid, one thing to keep in mind is our POs. So, PO, I'll take a PO. I don't like a PO because it's not cash money. But just know, okay, a PO is a purchase order.
Okay.
So what happened is you'll get certain organizations that may book you or want to book you and products at the same time. And what happens is that a school system like DeKalb County Schools here in Atlanta, Georgia, and if that money's not coming directly from the school, like the school's paying, if it's a county thing, normally I receive the PO. So if they order a bunch of books from me because I'm coming to go speak and they're putting all this together, I would get a purchase order. And the purchase order means that you deliver the product and the services, and we are guaranteeing you that your money has been earmarked from our funds for you to be paid. So a lot of times I will accept a PO in place of a deposit, because that's the only thing that organization can do. So don't get worried about a PO. The only problem with the PO is if you get a PO, you have to then immediately after the gig, you have to come back and turn in an invoice with the purchasing department or procurement department to make sure your funds are released to you.
Right. Yeah. So what organizations do you find that have, I guess, the most bureaucracy with payment?
It depends on where the funding is coming from, but universities can be a lot going on because the person booking you has to sign off on it. But then a lot of times the VP of finance or somebody higher up has to also sign it. And there's a process that they go through because they don't want anybody to just be able to write a check to their family member and say, hey, I brought so-and-so over here to speak. Okay. So it's interesting. I find the school systems and universities tend to have a lot of steps to go through to make sure you're getting paid, because that money has to be accounted for. There's a lot of, you see them all the time, a lot of scandals in school systems and universities with misappropriation of funds. Okay, so that's those two organizations. I see a lot of bureaucracy and paperwork involved. Sometimes with a large corporation, though, I don't want to call anybody by name, but I'm just going to say there's a Fortune 500 that I did some work for not too long ago, where even after I got set up as a vendor, and the person who was the event organizer, okay, she was in charge of the particular event I was coming to speak for. It was a very good event. It was for women in executive leadership positions. And what happened is I did the event. Everything was supposed to be good to go. She signed the contract. Everything was done. And then we found out that there was a mistake with the payment terms. So the payment terms should have been paid immediately upon delivery of services. Instead, they were net 180 days.
Yeah, wow. So that's a half a year.
Right. So now is when I found out how big a corporate company can be and how much red tape there is in corporate America. Because to get that changed, we had to go through her. we had to talk to her department head, then we had to talk to a VP, then we had to go over to procurement and talk to their manager and a VP over there to get all of this one little phrase changed on my invoice.
Right.
That was electronically, that was in its system. I could see that the payment had been authorized and it said pending, but I just needed them to change the terms from 180 days to immediate. And to get that done, it took almost 60 days.
Wow.
Back and forth, and and also people being confused as to what was really going on, and all of a sudden trying to understand, wait a minute, did this money actually come from this budget? Because what happened is it took so long that it flowed over into their next quarter. So
Right.
the money was budgeted to come out of the previous quarter, but because the payment terms got messed up, it was going to end up coming out of the next quarter. And then that was a whole other big mess. So you got to be careful. This is why we spend a lot of time talking about your money. Make sure you understand this. Make sure you look over the details very carefully about your payment terms, when the money is supposed to be there. So, and this is more critical to me as far as paperwork goes and bureaucracy with large corporations, universities, depending on where the funding is coming from, if it's not coming straight from student activities, or a school system, if you're not being paid directly by the school and you're being paid by the county. Now, that's my experience with those, Lawrence. You got any other ones? You've seen a lot of bureaucracy?
Mainly federal and state governments too.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I've had those same problems with federal and state governments.
Okay. Like military or something? Yeah.
You need a Dun and Bradstreet number.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and a few other things. So, different organizations have different ways for you to be set up as a vendor.
Right. Yeah. One time I did some work for the National Guard, and they have two sections. There's two different arms that could pay you as a speaker. Well, one of those arms required me to have this whole different profile, something at the time was called CCHR or something like that. And it is where you had to set up a profile with your Dun and Bradstreet number, and one on the other side, they normally took a bidding process. So I had to actually show them that Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and none of them could beat my pricing on my books, because otherwise they were going to have to send it out for a bidding process. So some of these things are things that speakers don't realize will come up in the payment process, and
That's
nobody
true.
wants to get delayed when it comes time to get paid. And you can avoid most of this by knowing the details. I'll give you one last example. One time I went to do some work for a school district, and when I got ready to get paid, we were sending in the contract. They said, sure, now just send us over your insurance provider.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Come to find out, this particular school district would not allow a speaker to come in unless you had insurance, commercial insurance that showed you would not sue them if you fell or got hurt on the property during a speaking engagement, and also that if you brought up any audience members, any students to volunteer anything, that they would be protected and nobody's going to come back and sue the district. Right. Well, the first time that happened to me, that totally blew my mind. I was like, what, insurance? What are you talking about? So now I'm running around looking, trying to find, do I have liability insurance? And, and find out that costs a lot of money. And who wants to carry liability insurance for one gig that year?
Right.
And so eventually somebody gave me a piece of advice, which I asked, and that was, hey, listen, since I'm coming in to do an event for the school, do you all have any liability insurance that your vendors can use for this particular event? And they did. So I got to use insurance one time via the school district's insurance that they had, that they allowed me to get some coverage for that particular event. It was crazy.
Yeah. And, we about 1 out of every 5 events we need insurance for that particular event.
Okay.
And we use a company called, I think it's called Francis Dean and Associates or something
okay.
like that. And it costs $50 per event.
Okay.
And it covers you for a total of 3 days, but you're only needed for that 1 day.
Right.
And that's worked pretty well. So it's, it costs $50, but if that's what the organization needs, that's what the organization needs, especially $10,000.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that's a lot cheaper than trying to carry a policy for the entire year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's good. All right. Well, So a lot on the how. There you go.
Right, right. So let's talk a little bit about making it official. So we know all the hows.
Right.
What are the things that you need to make it official?
Really, first things come to my mind, of course, is the contract.
Hmm.
That's number one. The organization may also need an invoice. That's the other one. And the last one is a video addendum. Those are the three main pieces that come to mind for me. And give them what they want. Now, of course, we want a contract. As a
Hmm.
speaker, as a bureau, we need this contract service agreement signed. That makes a lot of sense. However, I've had organizations that have been saying to me, Al, please, we just need an invoice. We need an invoice today. Like today, right now, send me an invoice. And I thought it was a little strange because I want a contract. So you want an invoice, but I want a contract because I feel like that's a little more secure. Well, I find out that at the end of the budgeting process, they are in a hurry to get these funds allocated. And
Right,
by sending an invoice that day, they can at least earmark the money or send it to you. Because I've gotten paid months in advance for events because they sent me an invoice, because I sent them an invoice and then they sent me the check. And sometimes I've gotten a check before they've even signed the contract. So
right.
give the event planner what he or she asks for in order to really lock this thing down.
Yeah, yeah. And that goes with the insurance thing too. Again,
Yeah.
invoice, contracts, video release forms if necessary.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, or sometimes, the organization may want to videotape you. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and having that video release form laying out how they are able to use that video
Yep.
to
It's
make
very
sure that
important.
they don't sell it or do something else associated with the video other than using it for archival purposes or whatever.
Right.
That's a good thing to have.
Yeah, I agree. And we talked about that a little bit on one of our other great pro tips on how to get great video footage. So if you haven't
Right.
checked that out, make sure you watch that. But just to touch on that again, you want to make sure if they're going to reuse it, it's for non-commercial use. That's
Right.
the term I like to make sure I see in my video addendum. That is non-commercial use. You cannot make any more money off of my intellectual property without me getting paid as well. So that's important.
Yeah, yeah, and we go into a deeper dive on all of these different things
Yeah.
under the Great Pro Speaker site. So if you want to know more about contracts and invoices and that type of thing and the tools that we use, check out greatprospeakers.com.
Yep.
Yeah, so then after you make it official, your work is still not done before the event happens.
Not
What
done.
comes next?
So we got more details, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we need to talk about the event with the organizer, right?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. That's before we get to the details. I'm in a hurry to get to the details.
Yeah. You
But
know what? Let's talk about the details first, and then we'll just talk. We'll
okay. Well, because there are always more details
yeah.
because so you got your first round of details done, but now you got to take care of the details. That is, did you actually make your travel arrangements? Were you
Mhm.
supposed to make them, or was the event planner supposed to make them? Did you book your rental car? Did you get the hotel? Did you did you talk to them about, can I sell my products at the event? Do not assume that you're allowed to sell your products at an event. I
Mhm.
found this out the hard way. That's not necessarily true. Some organizations have specific guidelines about keynote speakers not being coming in there and being able to sell their products either A, at all, or B, without at least a percentage of the proceeds coming back to the event, coming back to the organization. So they might want 10% or 15%, or a lot of times there's a conference store and they want to be the ones responsible for selling your products and services there.
Right.
So be careful about that as well.
Yeah, yeah. So the products, booking travel,
Yep.
those things are really important. Especially both of them are important. But in terms of financially, you can make an additional $5,000, 3,000,
Yeah.
whatever the amount
Yeah.
is on product sales.
Hmm.
And also you can talk about product sales when you're negotiating the contract too.
Yes.
Because it's a good way to earn some extra cash and also provide extra value to the organization.
Yeah, I am. I call it the upsell. So there's no organization in the world that doesn't have it. Fast food has it everywhere you
Yeah.
go. You want to make that a large.
Right.
This is what they say. And so for me, I always say, so do you want to give some books out to your attendees?
Right.
I think it'd be a great touch if we were able to provide some books for your attendees. I have a conference rate on my books. You know, you can provide them to your attendees at no cost, or if you want organization wanted to resell them, that's fine. You can make them part of your swag bag or whatever that is that you're giving away.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to upsell for bulk sales on books and things of that nature. Because if you can get them taken care of all at one time ahead of time, that's great for you. Then you don't have to
Right.
have somebody there manning your table with you, or you're there depending on how big your speaking business is. You might be solo. And let me tell you, you want to see something funny? Look at the end of a speaking engagement where you got your square out of your thing over here. You trying to swipe cards, sign books, sell this, talk to people, and hand out business cards all at one time by yourself. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. I'm saying you can avoid doing that. Your table could all of a sudden be, hey, come over here and pick up your books, because Miss Johnson, you know, event planner, so-and-so, she bought a whole bunch of them, and she bought them for all of you all. So you all come on over. I'm going to sign them all for you. And the only thing you're standing over there then doing is signing books, which is a lot different than trying to sell books, swipe the card, and have a long line of people, okay, while you're doing this by yourself. I've done it. It's very challenging.
Right. So, yeah, so make sure you get your product sales in order and get your travel book.
Yes, definitely.
What happens next? So we need to talk to organizer again.
Got to talk to her. So one conversation is not enough. You need, if the event planner asks for a conversation or not, you need one. And you can decide how far out is good enough for you. It depends for me. I vary, but normally no later than about 2 weeks out. Every now and then it might only be a week because it depends on what details are being worked out by the event planner. But I'm like 2 weeks to 30 days out. If you book me 66 months in advance, then I want to talk to you a minimum of 30 days out for an event, because I can't go 6 months without talking to you and then get ready to show up to an event. Anything could have happened, or anything could have got misconstrued by then. So if you're booking me 90 days out, and it's only been 90 days since I talked to you, then 2 weeks to 30 days, I'm going to give you a follow-up call. I'm going to set up a conference call, or I'm going to ask the bureau to set up a conference call for me to talk to the event planner. And what I'm going to say on there is, to my understanding, you'd like me to talk about this. You like the audience to walk away with these 3 things. I'm doing a keynote and a breakout session. My keynote is going to start at this time. Do you have a room? Do you know what room? Is it in the main exhibit hall? Is it in the auditorium? Is it in the gymnasium? Is it in the student center? Where is my keynote going to happen? Is my breakout session in the same place as the keynote? Will you have a map? Can somebody show me how to get there? Will that room be set up already? Do you have PowerPoint if I need that? Do I need to send you my handouts ahead of time? How soon do you need my handouts so that you can print them off and get them so they can be distributed? So these are the questions that I'm asking the event planner about right before the gig. And I'm going over once again, and I'm really stressful on this. What do you want to hear out of my mouth, and how would you be what would make you happiest? And how should I come across? What do I need to do to make sure you look great? And I tell any event planner, I got 2 jobs: make the audience happy, to give good content, good energy, okay? But my other job is to make sure you look good, because you're the event planner. You're putting a lot of faith in me. The bureau's putting faith in me, and I'm gonna make sure both of y'all look good. They're gonna be like, who got this guy? He's awesome. Not, oh, where did you get this speaker from? Right. Yeah, so got to have a conference call and talk about these things right there.
Right. Yeah, I think confirming those expectations leads to a lot less troubles down the road. With unsatisfied, customers. I'm like, I thought he was going to talk about this, but then he got on stage to talk about something else.
Right.
So once you confirm those expectations and having that pre-event conference call, you can work out and confirm a lot of those different things.
Yep.
And then I guess the event happens after that, right?
Yeah, so you have the event, and no, it's not over yet, because there's an expression in sales we always like to say, fortune is in the follow-up.
Yeah.
That is, I know you got paid, you sold some products, but you would be surprised at how much more money you can make with a simple follow-up call.
Right.
We're going to send you an after-event survey to find out what you liked about the event. Did we meet your expectations? And we're also going to say, hey, Do you have any referrals for us? Is there anybody else that you'd like to recommend us for? And also, we're going to say, listen, we'd like to book you for next year right now.
Right.
We'd like to lock that date in on the calendar, especially if it's an orientation or something like that. You say, you know what? Let's just take this off your plate right now. Let's get booked for next year already. So these are things that happen after the event. So it's not over just because you got off the stage. It's not over till you get back home to your office or wherever, and you make that last phone call and send out that email that says, hey, here's the after event survey. And also, I'd like to talk to you real quick. Say thank you. They had a lot of speakers to choose from. They chose you. And make sure you do some follow-up. Ask for referrals.
Right. So yeah, that's it then. So
yeah, and so that's it. Now here's what I'm going to say about this. So listen to everything we just said. What you do is this is not one of those things you say, okay, I got that. I'm going to remember that. No, don't remember. Do not remember this. Make a checklist. Make a template, make a checklist, and use it for every time you get a speaking engagement. And just check it off every time. This is what I do. None of this is, I don't do any of this by memory anymore. I don't even waste my time trying to memorize. Did I remember? Did we talk about travel yet? Wait a minute. Did I set the date for the conference call? I don't have to worry about that. It's on the checklist. And it goes step by step. You did this, Al, now do this. Do this, do this, do this. And there are reminders that come to me or they're on my calendar that helps me say, this is where you are in the process, Al, because you got more than one gig going on. You got 5 or 10 gigs. There's no way you're going to remember that. And I'm stressing this part because I see speakers all the time say, oh, I'll remember that. Don't worry, I'll remember that. Who could forget to book their travel?
Yeah.
You. That's who. Right? I've done it many times, so be careful with that. Make a checklist. Go back, listen to this one more time. If you didn't take notes, pull out a piece of paper or type on, computer, whatever, and make a checklist so that you can use to go through this process.
Yeah. And what I do, actually, I use a Trello board.
Cool. Yes. Well, we love Trello.
So I use a Trello board. So for those who don't know, Trello is a board or a tool that has a board with different lists on it. And then you can move things from one list to another list.
Yeah.
So it makes it easy for, a standard process such as what happens after the event or what happens after the speaker says yes or after the organization says yes. So, it starts out with, the contract being created, the contract being signed by the organization, me signing the contract, going to, deposit being received, travel being booked. Event happens, and then what happens after the event. So,
I like Trello.
Yeah, it makes it super easy to keep track with, all the events that Great Black Speakers may have going on at the same time.
Yep, I like Trello. Lawrence put me on the Trello. That's what we use for Great Pro Speakers to keep track of our videos and what we need to do and what topic we're on. So it works great. I also use Todoist because it's just a quick little checklist that I can use right on my phone. Whatever it is you need, I really – at the end of the day, productivity tends to be a matter of personal choice. So we're giving you a couple tools right there that you should at least take a look at. But whatever works for you, that's fine. Just use it. Use something. That's all we're saying.
Right. So here we go, Al. So
all right.
We have everything knocked out.
Yeah, so I think that about knocks it out for this week. So this is Al Duncan on behalf of Lawrence Watkins, right? We will see you all very soon on another great pro tip. Till next time, be safe, be well, and be blessed.
All right. See you guys.